Hey, what's up, everybody? Back for another special edition of our podcast. Today we're going to talk about Don't Worry, Darling. Um, this movie, which has more drama around it behind the scenes than on the screen, I think. At least that's the only reason I went to see it. I wasn't going to go see it at all, but all of this. Did he spit on him? Did he not spit on him? Did he. Did they fire Shia LaBeouf? Did they not fire Shia LaBeouf? I don't know. It depends on who you ask. There's like a million different versions of the story. But let's get into it. Yeah, we all got a chance. I'm here with my cousins, Marcela, Claudia, Evalina, and we're going
Happy
to talk
to
about
have.
this.
Hey, thanks for
So
having us.
thank you for being here. What'd you guys think of this movie? What was your overall take on this?
I was surprised how much I liked it.
Me too. I thought it was a pretty good movie. Like, I went into it expecting it to be bad because I saw on Rotten Tomatoes it got a 38%. So I was like, all right, this is going to be bad, but like, I wanted to see it. Plus, I knew all the drama. I read like every article about like what Shia LaBeouf said, what Olivia Wilde said, and then Florence, choosing not to go, or she said she wasn't going to go. She wasn't at the press conference and she wasn't going to be at the film festival. I think it was like Cannes or maybe it was Venice, one of those places. But then she showed up like the morning of, she said she was going to go. And then she said, oh, my schedule with Dune is just so unpredictable. And she came and just slayed everybody in the cast, looking beautiful.
I quite literally had never heard of her before this movie.
What?
I was
Florence
like,
Pugh?
I was like, Florence and the Machine? Who is this person? I don't know.
Okay.
You know what,
No,
Marcella, you're not going to get invited back to this podcast because Florence Pugh's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You don't watch Hawkeye. You don't watch Black Widow, huh?
I
She's
did watch those. I
she
don't remember her being in it.
She's literally Black Widow's sister.
Oh, that's her. Oh, wow. She doesn't look the same. In this movie, I really felt that she looked a lot like Hayden Panettiere. Anyone else?
I could see that a little
Okay.
bit. I could see
Yeah,
that
I
a
could
little
see
bit.
that as well.
They're both like short, uh,
Blondes.
blonde. Yeah.
Blonde.
Little blonde bitches.
It was like the upturned little nose and like,
Yeah, she for sure has a nose job. I was really looking at her face.
yeah.
Yeah.
Florence
Those
Pugh.
profile, I was like, man, that doctor put in work.
I know. I was like, give me her surgeon's name because like he deserves all the coins.
Yes.
But okay, but in terms of the movie, I really was surprised as well as how much I liked the movie because from the initial trailer we saw, the scene of all the cars driving away, I instantly got the whole vibe that it was kind of some type of simulation. Definitely gave me Truman Show vibes. Like
Because
the
I
one
told you all this before we watched it.
Okay, I already knew that. But in the trailer where they're all standing at the curb and like waving to their men as the men drive off, like that is literally a carbon copy of a scene from the Truman Show. I don't know like how vividly you remember the Truman Show, but there was like specific scenes from the trailer that I was like, it's gonna be the same thing. But yeah, it was really interesting to find out that like Harry ended up being the bad guy, basically.
Yeah, I walked away really pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed it. I loved that, like, towards the end, we got a taste of like women empowerment and like, there's so much themes in the
Can
real
you have an
world.
example of the woman
Yeah,
empowerment?
what's so empowering about forcing a woman against her will into a simulation so much that she kills herself off of a
I think
house?
I think her getting out of it in the end was the empowerment part. That
Yeah, like
the whole thing
because
was her being
Oh, no one
oppressed
believed her,
before
but she
that.
still believed in
yeah,
herself.
like how the women in the simulation didn't get to choose whether or not they wanted to be there, except for Olivia Wilde, which was represented by her red hair, because I guess like little bits of red color in this meant that those people knew. So like it first manifests itself in that plane with the sun, right? And then
Oh.
the woman, forgot her name, who jumped off the roof, right? She was holding the plane
She didn't
and
jump off. She slit her throat.
okay. Yeah. And then like the men, that clean up the whole scene, they're wearing red and stuff. So I thought that was really cool, like theme throughout the movie.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
So you mentioned the plane. That was one of the questions I wrote down. Was when she first saw the plane, it was far away, and then it passed by her, and then it went further away as she watched it fly away, and there was like a little bit of a shimmer, like the plane had entered in like a force field of like a bubble of where they were or something, and then it left. So then I was thinking, oh, are they in like a bubble or something? But then like we find out that yes, it's a simulation, virtual reality or whatever. So I'm like, well, why would they have a bubble like that in a virtual reality simulation? Because I don't know. Maybe I play too many video games, but like if you get to the edge of a map in a video game, nothing like ever goes outside of the map, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So like there wouldn't even be a shimmer. The plane would just like disappear or something. Maybe I'm thinking too much about it, yeah. But
Also, what was that plane? Was that a real plane? In like, who was driving the plane? Who was flying the plane?
So I think the plane wasn't actually real. I think the plane is like a representation or whatever of like her actual curiosity to go to the headquarters, because that's where it led her, right? Like where it crashed.
Do you remember? So the plane that she saw in the sky, the son that was taken away from the woman who committed suicide, that was his toy plane, and she was clutching the plane, remember? So the plane is clearly a symbol of them knowing something, but I didn't understand what was the significance of, like, yes, she saw it in the sky, and that's kind of like what sparked her to believe that, like, okay, what was her name? Margaret? Like maybe Margaret is right. But yeah, the fact that we didn't get to know anything else about the plane, I'm like, okay, so then what was the point? Or like, like.
That's, yeah, because I think like the plane wasn't actually real. It was like her justifying her own curiosity to go to headquarters, because that was like the only rule they had, was like not to go to headquarters.
Okay.
So it was like,
I see what you're saying. That's a real big stretch for me to
Yeah,
get that from the movie.
I don't know.
That's a real big stretch.
well, because we never saw a crash site. The guy driving.
I would have like believed like somebody else on the outside was trying to send her messages, and the plane was like the message or something. But
Yeah.
that we didn't get any of that. So.
Yeah, because the only connection of the red plane was that it was Margaret's son's toy plane that she's clutching. And yeah, so I don't know about the whole red plane thing.
I see what you're saying, Evalina, and I understand it. I'm just saying it was a bad choice by whoever wrote it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. There were a lot of things in this movie that didn't make sense. I feel they never clearly explained what the sonic booms were. Like,
Yeah.
What was that? I don't know.
Was that in real life, or was that something the Victory Project was like doing, or in real life?
You mean like the earthquake things, or
yeah, like when they hold the spices, and like when the ladies are like shopping, like all the models are coming out in the swimsuits, then they like brace for it. Like if it was sonic boom, earthquake, whatever it was, like they never explained it.
And it seemed like they were all very familiar with it, because she was like, they're happening more and more frequent or something.
Yeah, and it
I don't know.
Yeah, we never got clarity on that. Also because you know how Harry Styles' character mentions, like, they basically leave the simulation every day to like slave away and do whatever they have to do. So then it's like, is the sonic boom that that they feel like the men coming back into the simulation, or the men leaving the simulation? Like, what's that jolt in the simulation? Like something's either entering or exiting. I don't know. But I really think that it was essentially a cult, because as like the movie went on, like Harry Styles, the real life Harry Styles, looked worse and worse. Like his cheeks were sunken in, like his hair was super stringy and gross. Like he literally looked like he had to like sell his soul or something to like stay in the simulation. And I feel like maybe they were doing like some crazy like testing on them. Like, okay, your real life is about to get real effed up, but you get to live in this like utopia world. And everything's amazing.
And
But then my other theory, before we found out it was a simulation, was that they were being drugged through the alcohol because alcohol consumption was so encouraged throughout the movie that I thought like something was in the drink that was keeping them like semi drugged the whole time, like a microdosing of like shrooms or something. Like that's why she was seeing stuff. That's why like they were kind of in this like state of like almost like yeah, just like living in this reality that's definitely not real.
And
But
doing
that
the same things
and
every
doing the
day.
same thing every day.
Like with the coffee and the bacon scene every time, like it would restart. Like, okay, it's a new day with the coffee,
Yeah.
the bacon sizzling, and the egg. So,
Yeah. So much to unpack there, Marcella. Your theory about them logging in and out of the simulation, I saw it online as well. But since we see the first sonic boom with him in the kitchen, remember they both brace that it can't be that. But you're on the right track there.
no, what if that was that new couple that came?
Yeah, because remember then the new couple was introduced.
I don't know, but
Yeah,
you know,
it's really hard to say, and they never clarified it. Also, I feel what else did you said
she
so
said
many
alcohol.
things.
She said
The
Oh,
alcohol.
yeah, so they're drinking alcohol so much, but they never really get drunk, except for the first scene is the only time we really see them like actually feeling the effects of like being intoxicated. So you're right, like there is so much alcohol consumption, but they're not really getting drunk in the rest of the movie, but then we see it in the beginning. Like, I don't know. That was also because there was so much alcohol. And then, like, when they had, after Jack gets his promotion and Chris Pine, or no, sorry, Harry Styles' character gets his promotion and Jack comes over, you see, like, their whole wall next to their front door is, like,
the
covered.
mini bar.
I was like, geez, what am I at? Like, downtown San Jose, like at a bar or something. Like, there was so much alcohol stock. I was like, this is ridiculous. But I couldn't quite understand like what's the connection with the alcohol. Maybe Ryan, you can
I
comment
didn't.
on.
Yeah, I didn't really. I wasn't thinking about the alcohol at all during that. And then I, as you're talking about that, it makes less and less sense to me. Like, how can you get drunk in a virtual reality simulation? It like. I mean, obviously they do. Your mind is connected to it, so they have some control over your brain or something, and they just simulate being drunk, right? And I assume once you come out, if you're a guy, once you come out, you're normal again.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of things like I wanted to go over. Like number one, after if you go back and think about it, like every morning they go outside, they see the men off, and they wave to them, and it's like all happy hunky dory, and the men are all smiling and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, if all these men have to go back to the real world, and like, uh, they're going to do their whatever craptastic job so they can be able to afford to put the wife in the simulation 24/7, like then also like she's not doing anything, so you have to like clean out her pee, clean out her poop, uh,
Yeah, the bodies can't
give
just sit
her or
there.
refill her IV. You're basically like a 24-hour nurse caregiver,
Mm-hmm.
um, on top of having to work full time, on top of going into this simulation. I guess when you sleep, that's when you go into the simulation. But like, I was like, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, see you later, dear." I'd be like, "Oh shit, I gotta go back to the real world." Like, I would be like
Yeah.
so depressed every morning.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think it was never clear like if Harry Styles is actually working for Jack, like actually working for the simulation, like maybe he's some kind of like technical software engineer guy, or he's just working like a menial job that he hates. Because like at the end
I
when he's
think
like,
he did say something like it was some shitty job that he hated,
Because he looked like shit.
and he looks like
oh,
shit, and he's like, but
yeah,
he's just like, he's kind of like a drug addict, right? He just has to keep doing this and like keep oppressing her and keeping her
yeah.
prisoner.
So
So
then I didn't understand like why all the men are fighting in the or not fighting but like competing for like Jack's attention and Jack's approval. Then he gets like the promotion. Like what exactly does that mean if they're not actually employed by the, simulation company or whatever, the victory people? Like
I
what was the significance of promoting Harry Styles if like he doesn't even work there?
I think it's like what Marcella said. It's like a cult. So these are like the low level people, and you get a promotion. So you're like, ooh, I'm getting higher to like the main guy. Like,
Yep.
ooh, I'm no longer like one of these guys. I'm kind of in
Yep.
almost.
And then all the other guys are gonna be like, "Ooh, I want to be like that guy," so they like
Yeah.
work even harder
It's
to.
like a combination of cult, pyramid scheme, like climb your way to the top. Like Chris Pine is like the one guy at the top. Like you know how pyramid schemes, like it's always the one guy at the top that's only successful. The rest of the people are just kind of like shits out of luck. So it's like cult, pyramid scheme,
So,
simulation, everything.
couple of things I wanted to talk about on the, when it finally reveals like him like the first time he set it up or whatever, and it like asked him those questions, and then it said like one of the questions I thought was really creepy was like, "Do you have a specific person in mind to be your wife?" And he says yes. He says, "Do you have a pre-existing relationship with this person?" And he said yes. That implies that there are other men in there that don't have pre-existing relationships. They just like kidnap these women and put them in there. Like,
Yeah.
Because
I mean, what he did is horrible, but at least he and they were in a relationship. Like, these guys could have been just like some random girl he was like creeping on or perving on at the gym, and he
okay,
just like
well,
kidnaps her and then forces her in this simulation.
okay.
Go
So
ahead, Marcella.
remember at
Oh,
Flo-
sorry, I raised my hand.
remember at Florence Pugh's like dinner party where she's saying, "Oh, that's funny. Did you guys meet on the train?" Yeah, he accidentally dropped his ticket. I feel like Harry Styles and other men who wanted to enter this cult knew, okay, I have to have, like, for some reason to enter into this cult or whatever, they have to have a woman that they're responsible for. So the fact that they're all meeting a certain way tells me that these men have already chosen them and then, like, okay, yeah, now I have a relationship with her. Now I'm ready to enter.
I thought it was more of like it's just the same bullshit story. Everyone has the same bullshit story that's made up.
I think. Well, I
I
think.
agree. I
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think it's like the creepy men who don't have a relationship. They use that bullshit
Yeah,
story. Yeah.
like the simulation people feed them like, okay, this is how you guys met. This is what you're gonna say. Also,
Instead of
Alex
I
had
kidnapped her.
yeah, Alex had said like it would have been more sinister if like Harry and Florence didn't have their relationship and it was like he was just the stalker that like took over her because he didn't really like like it would have really played into like more Harry being like this weird, creepy guy.
Yeah.
But then I also feel like by the time Harry set up this simulation thing, him and Florence were broken up. That's why he went to the apartment with the flowers and then like somehow drugged her. And then remember, her feet are like dragging. So I think like, no, we did get that. Like, he is creepy. He wanted her so badly, that
But
like,
didn't he have like no job and he was like a bum and she was like a straight up surgeon?
And he was like, "You didn't make any dinner?" It's like she just walked in the door on like a 30-hour shift. Can you do something? Can you get off your ass? I was so annoyed at
me
that whole
too.
entire scene. How freaking lazy he was, and how he was mad at her for being the freaking breadwinner. So that's also why I think in this one or in the simulation, like he's the one who goes off to work all the time. Like she's the one who gets to stay home and be the housewife. I think that's very misogynistic. I think he was jealous that he wasn't the breadwinner. And so in
Mm,
this simulation, he got to be the one in charge and, all of that. Because men, everything with men is all about control.
yeah. I could really see that in the scene where Jack promotes Harry Styles' character, and they're all like him and Chris Pine are on stage and they're chanting like "It's our world, it's our world." Like all the men are really excited about it and like really, just like enthusiastic about the chant, but like the women are just kind of like, oh, it's just my husband or whatever. So then to me, that showed like, wow, like they really have a big ownership on whatever's going on here that the women just don't have.
Well, and in one of like the scenes where they're at the pool or something, there's like an advertisement about here at Victory, we love blah blah blah. We love it so much here. We don't even remember what our lives were like before we came. And I was like, oh,
Big
They
hint
all.
there.
I remember she could only. I think she maybe even mentioned how she could only remember coming there. She didn't really remember anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like she didn't know she was a doctor. All she remembered was coming there. So yeah.
So another question I had was Chris Pine gets killed by his wife,
Mm.
Gemma Chan, and Astrid from Crazy Rich Asians.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I was like, well, I wish they showed us more with that because she said like, oh, it's my turn now. Like you're an idiot or something.
Yeah, she was like, "You stupid idiot" or
You
something.
stupid
Whatever.
idiot. Like so, it seems like she was complicit in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like she
I
wasn't being. It seemed like she was a player. She wasn't like held hostage or
yeah,
like she
I
didn't
feel
know
like
what was
she
going on.
definitely knew because I feel like Chris Pine like implored her to control the women because she led the ballet class. And then when like Margaret was acting up, she would like kind of get them in check. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I feel like, or I think that she killed Chris Pine because the simulation wasn't going, like she's in on it. She planned this with Chris Pine and like knew what was going to, or like knew what they wanted to do. But at the same time, I think she didn't know what direction Chris Pine was taking it, and then she was upset
Mm-hmm. So
with.
he was
He was
like the
basically
leader.
messing it up.
He
Or
was
she
the
knew
leader,
that
and
she
she
was
didn't really
playing.
get a say, but she was in on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now she
Yeah.
gets to run things.
I think like the end, there was so much going on in the end. Like the timing of things, of how events played out towards the end, just didn't really match the rest of the flow of the movie. Like I would have liked to see, a little bit more hints at like this being a simulation earlier on in the movie, because so much unfolded towards the end that I felt like didn't connect. Like with
Yes.
Gemma stabbing Chris Pine, I would have liked to see like maybe in the scenes previously, like where they're hosting, see some kind of conflict there. But I was really surprised that she stabbed him. And then afterward, I was like, well, where's this going? Like, she's going to take over, or her stabbing Chris, does that mean like she's going to build this world that women want to be in, like that will actually be their choice or something? Like I just didn't understand like what direction is she going to take that's different than Chris Pine, or she was just upset with how he handled it because now like Florence is going to get out, and she felt like he shouldn't have let her get out, he should have done
Right.
something else to keep
Right.
her trapped or
Exactly.
something.
Yeah. That's pretty much how I felt. Like you didn't know where she stood on any of it, and you could have just had like a, I don't know, like a one line to explain it too. But
Mhm.
um, let me see. So like I was really bored in this movie. I was so bored for like the
Really?
first hour. I was so bored. And I just like kept looking at my watch, or I don't have a watch, but I just like kept going like, okay, how much longer is this? I look at my phone, like, oh god, it's only been like 30 minutes. I thought it was really boring in the beginning. And I gotta say, like, I liked like the reveal and the twist and everything, but I think I am a little too old and I've seen too many movies, and I'm like, well, this is just the Stepford Wives with like Westworld and the Matrix sprinkled in. I was like,
Mhm.
I've seen this all. Have you girls seen the Stepford Wives?
No,
No.
we have heard it's similar.
Yeah, so I mean, they already had like one in the 1970s, and then they had a remake in like the 2000s. And the 2000s one was more a little funnier. The 70s one was a little more serious. But then it's like, I don't know. And I've seen like Westworld and I've seen The Matrix, and it's just like, okay, well, all right. I guess I just seen too many things. I just kept waiting for something to happen, and it took so long for it to happen. And then like Evalina said, like it was like the last like 15 minutes was like boom, 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 boom. You know.
Yeah, so much happened in the last
So I guess I would say my complaint is the pacing. Like you gotta
Mhm.
spread some of that out. You can't just like put all of it in the last whatever.
Mhm.
I guess
Yeah.
the beginning was her trying to figure out what's going wrong with the neighbor lady, whatever her name
Mhm.
was,
Margaret.
Margaret. Yeah. Um, one thing I noticed was, and maybe you guys would agree with me, it's called the Victory Project. And I thought of that as like a victory, as in there's a battle between the sexes, and in here, like, the men have won the battle. They have victory. You know,
Oh.
I don't know if you guys, I didn't read anybody else saying that online, or if you guys thought that, but that's how I like interpreted it. Otherwise, I couldn't figure out like why you would call it the Victory Project.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
I wish there had been a little bit more, I don't know, insight into what
The
the project,
recruiting, the
yeah,
recruiting of it all. What enticed people?
what enticed people to leave their like amazing jobs that they had to pursue the Victory Project.
Who had
Like,
amazing jobs though?
I don't
They
think they
all
had amazing jobs
I
in
think,
real
well, I
life.
think, yeah, I think if
going for like
I
low
think
life.
I think it's all guys that are like, struggling.
oh, all losers. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, it would have been interesting to see a little bit more about the recruitment process and then what the project actually promised them. Because the fact that like okay, they have this perfect life, but then like Harry kind of like has his like breakdown moment where he's like, I hate it. I go every day. I hate it, and he looks terrible in real life. So I want to know like what, yeah, what they were promised.
Other than just the simulation
Yeah.
life, like, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I now that you mentioned victory, like the victory between the sexes, Ryan, that makes so much more sense to me because like these men in their lives, they're unhappy, they're ugly, like they're not desirable, yet they still want to have like the control over the women to, cook for me, clean for me, smile and be ripe and ready in the mood when I get home
Talking
for
about
me.
the sex scenes, why were they so intense? I was like kind of getting uncomfortable. I was like, okay,
Yeah, one second, Claudia. We'll address the scene.
okay.
But yeah, that makes sense that like they, in a sense won this way. Like they got to have everything they wanted out of a woman and, doing everything that they in terms of what men or in this movie misogynistic men believe to be like the role that the woman should fulfill. They won, but
But
their lives suck.
but then,
In real life.
because remember how Florence Pugh is like uncovering like, where are you from? And she's like, oh, I'm from there too. So like the fact that the demographic, they all seem to be from a similar area makes
But I
me
think
think,
that's a cover story, Marcella. I think that they're all just like programmed to say that. I don't think they actually all have memories of that because they
yeah,
don't.
yeah. It's
Oh,
totally made up. Yeah.
yeah.
well,
Everyone just has the same story, but it's not actually true. That's how
well,
she caught on.
I also thought, okay, maybe like, since they have similar stories and like it's very cult like, and the women, like some people know what's going on and some people don't, then I was like, what if this is like a government experiment, you know?
I don't think it was funded by the government. And in terms of the recruitment process, they had to apply. So I'm sure there was like some kind of like screening process, like but would these men really pass a psychological evaluation in real life if they're just kidnapping a woman that they want to live with forever?
I would also say, like, if Chris Pine or whoever is doing behind it had the capability of creating a simulation like this that was so lifelike, there are much healthier ways and much more lucrative ways to make this simulation where you could make more money and have it not be this misogynistic, toxic environment. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could even have like you could have this like, but also like the people in it would be complicit. There are women out there that would like to have that sort of life. Like Olivia Wilde chose it for the reason of seeing her kids, right? Which I'm
Yeah,
assuming those kids are not her kids; those are simulation, those are AI or
yeah.
something, right?
Yeah.
So if
He
they
just
if
didn't.
they're that sophisticated where they can create AI kids like that, hell, they could create an AI wife for you. They could create an AI hubby for you. You know,
Yeah, that's so
he could have
true.
like 6 foot tall, six pack or whatever. You know,
Yeah, you know what? You're so right. That doesn't make sense. That like in order for them to create the wife, they had to choose a woman on the
a real
outside.
woman. Yeah,
Right, a real woman. But then for the kids are fake. Maybe their tech only progressed to like adolescence. And then they thought that, as the simulation runs and they get more advanced, they'll be able to further improve the kids to grow into adults. But, to
But for
start
birth,
as
they
an
need
adult
like a body. They need a
person.
home body.
Yeah.
But
for every single
also,
person.
that one lady was pregnant, remember? So, like, how does she have a child in the simulation? How does she
and
get
Harry
pregnant?
was like, I think we should have a baby.
Yeah, like, how do they have a child in the simulation? How do they.
Like, would she actually give
Well, she's
birth to
probably,
him?
yeah,
Yeah.
obviously she's not. Oh, God, that makes me think. Is she, like, pregnant in real life? Like, oh, jeez. Did he, like,
Yeah.
impregnate her while she was comatose? Or. Oh, God, now that's really disturbing.
That's very Handmaid's Tale.
That's very disturbing. I mean, she's not
Yeah.
even conscious.
I think that they would be able to, in the simulation, be able to like evoke the process of childbirth, like the feelings of childbirth, maybe not the actual process, so that they could have a baby or at least feel like they had a baby. But you're right. If the kids weren't real, like they just make them feel pregnant for 9 months and then their AI is ready. Like, okay, your new child will be done in 9 months or something like that. I don't know.
One other thing I wanted to point out was I find that every modern sci-fi fantasy movie nowadays, if the main character is named Alice, it's a play on Alice in Wonderland. It's like almost guaranteed. I can't remember the other examples, but there was like another example recently where the character's name was Alice, and it was basically an allegory, like it was basically a remake of like Alice in Wonderland. It's just, yeah. So she's like going down the rabbit hole in this crazy world or whatever.
I heard that too. And then because Olivia Wilde's character's name is Bunny, but I'm like, I don't remember Alice in Wonderland that well to know the connection between
the
Alice
the
and Bunny.
white bunny rabbit is
What?
I think in the story it's like if she has to follow the white bunny rabbit to go down in the hole or something.
Yeah.
And that
Oh,
was in the Matrix too. He had to follow the white bunny rabbit, and somebody told him that, and he's like, I don't see a white bunny rabbit, and then it was like a tattoo on somebody, so he followed that person. It's been a long time since I've seen the first Matrix, but there's something
Yeah.
like that too.
And then like that makes sense because Bunny or Olivia Wilde's character was like definitely the leader of the women. Well, more on like a day-to-day sense. I guess you could argue that Gemma's character was the true leader, but
I think more in the sense that like she also was the one to reassure Florence that like no, this is real. Like you're crazy. Like no, like you don't know what you're talking about. You're saying like everything Margaret's saying. So I think that she kind of influenced her to go further deeper because she was like Alice was starting to doubt herself. But then Bunny would kind of push her farther and be like, no, like
yeah.
I think, and other thing I wanted to talk about was it does point out a problem in the real world that I think a lot of people have. It's just like obviously Harry Styles' solution for it was terrible, which is like he was depressed, he was a loser, but she was all, and she had like a job she liked, but she was always exhausted too. You know, like people feel like they have to like, if even if they have their dream job, they feel like they have to work themselves to the bone.
Right.
Otherwise, they feel like there's something wrong with them or something. And then on his side, like he felt like probably like he wasn't worth anything because he couldn't get a good job or whatever. So like obviously his solution was really effed up, but like it does show a problem that I think both anybody of any gender can have. Obviously, it doesn't show us a way of solving that healthily, but
yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, otherwise we wouldn't get the movie that we have. So
Yeah. No real solutions.
no real
Yeah,
solutions.
that is interesting. Because especially like Florence, like she really, well, when in the end we found out that like she really enjoyed what she did, her surgeon job, but then she was like working extra hours to make ends meet. Also, I feel like if she was a surgeon, don't you think she'd be making a little bit more so like they didn't have to live so much like that?
Right?
I feel like you could
She's
definitely
probably
support.
still a resident. They called her doctor, but like when you're a resident, you don't make a lot of money. You have to become an attending to make big bucks. And then also if you're in a public hospital, you still not might make a ton of money. It's like when you get into private practice that's
Oh,
the
I
more
see.
lucrative.
Hmm.
So and she seems pretty young, right? So like she's probably
Yeah,
still a resident, although she is like they did call her doctor, so she's a resident, just not an attending yet. Um,
yeah. I felt like her profession was confusing for me because I was like, I'm pretty sure like you could support two people on a surgeon salary, but it wasn't clear about where in her surgeon career she was. It
mhm.
makes sense that like, yeah, if she was a resident, then they would be struggling and, trying to make ends meet. But I don't know, I felt like they should have chosen something else that like yeah, we could have seen her be more passionate about and enjoy, but then also that know that, that job is not gonna be able to support two people.
Well,
Yeah,
also medical school's really expensive, so maybe she had loans she was paying
yeah,
off.
yeah, that too.
Yeah, I was thinking student loans, just
Student
like
loans.
drowning in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand how medical people in the medical profession do it because they're always like, "Oh, I just came off like a 30-hour shift, a 36-hour shift," and I'm like, "Did you sleep 36 hours? Like the longest I've ever stayed awake is like 36 hours. I don't know how they
You
do
could
it."
hold a knife to someone's like
Yeah, and they're
body.
supposed to be cutting you open and stuff. Like I get that they do get naps. I think they do
Mhm.
get
Yeah.
naps, but it's
In
still
Grey's
like
Anatomy, you
crazy.
make
Yeah,
lots.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know how they do it. Yeah. Last time I talked to my friend, she's a doctor, and I'm like, how did you get through like the early years? And she's like, yeah, I don't know. They're trying to change it, but if you make them work less shifts, then it'll take that much longer for you to get pat through your residency. So then
Mm,
then you won't be making any money for even longer. And it's like, okay, well,
yeah.
that
But
is
then
a crazy profession.
yeah, but you don't want to be like the person that has to go under the knife on like a resident that's just worked like for the past 25
20,
hours.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
What
but
if
you
you
don't
have like,
It's
know.
like, did you just get here? How many nights of good rest have
yeah,
you
how
had?
many hours have you worked so far? How many do you have left? This is a seven
How many
hour
hours did you
sleep
sleep?
and you're off in 5 hours. Are you gonna like, you know, take some shortcuts? I don't know.
Yeah, man or woman, you want them to be well rested.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what doctors tell us. You have to have at least 6 hours of sleep to be well rested and everything.
I thought it was 8.
Oh, maybe. But yeah, they're telling us that, and mind you, they're working 30-hour shifts and poking around in our bodies.
And then they only get 6 hours of sleep and she had to do it again. Well, allegedly in the show, she had to do another 30 hours after she slept for 6 hours.
Well,
Yeah.
was there anything else you guys wanted to bring up? Anything? Any other complaints or praises?
I wanted to ask each of us, would you do something like this? And what modifications would you make to the simulation?
Absolutely not. I would rather be dead than let a man control my life.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
and as much as I complain about things in my current life, I would probably get real tired of that routine that they got going on, and I don't like cooking.
Well, like I said, the first hour was so boring for me. Like, I was just as a gamer, like, man, this is the most boring game simulation I've ever seen.
yeah.
Let
I,
alone, I mean, let alone kidnapping or forcing somebody against their will. Like, I was like, this isn't even fun. Like, what are you
yeah,
guys doing? Like, if it was
Yeah.
something fun and everybody was consenting and conscious adults, then sure. But I was like, this game sucks. I'll give it a crappy review on Steam or something. One
yeah.
star.
I felt like if it was a consensual thing, you got to log in and out, I would do it. Because, like, I think about my Animal Crossing island, and, like, it would be so cool to just, like, go in there and run around this world that I built for a little bit. And then, like, be able to fish and, like, do fun stuff that you would do in a video game, right? Like, those kind of activities, and, like, get to actually live in that world. Like, be able to fly a plane and drive a boat because like I can't do that stuff in real life. But like if I got this opportunity that I chose to go into the simulation and do all these fun things that I enjoy, yeah, I would do it. But I wouldn't be in there all day, and I would hope that I wouldn't like work all day just so I could be in this all night type of thing.
Actually, you bring up a good point because what Olivia Wilde wanted was to see her kids. Like, I would, if you could recreate my like loved ones, then I was like, oh, if I could see my grandparents again, that would be pretty cool. If I
Yeah.
could see my old dogs again, that would be pretty cool. Yeah,
Mm. Like go play mahjong with your grandparents for a session and like, oh, you could walk the Great Wall of China
yeah, right,
again. Yeah, that would be so much fun.
yeah. Or like,
Yeah.
yeah, be an astronaut, or like you said, all the things you can't do in real life.
Yeah.
That would be
Like I've
cool.
always wanted to fly a plane, but I'm not going to go to pilot school. Like that's so expensive and I don't want to fly like actual human lives, be responsible for them. But anyways,
Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up for Don't Worry, Darling. This was a fun session, an impromptu, um, fun recording session. So, yeah, I think we're going to be back for House of the Dragon episode 7 fairly soon.
Yeah, we
Um,
still need to watch it. We haven't
okay.
watched it yet.
But other than that, we'll be signing out right now. Okay, thanks,
thank
guys.
you.
Bye, thanks.
Bye.